invoking my right to remain silent, and invoking my right to have my attorney present during questions. I'm not answering questions. I'm not giving you ID.
We have the right during an investigation to identify you.
I'm not identifying myself.
So you're going to end up going to jail.
I told him my name is Jeff, and that's all I'm giving you.
Hey, no, if you want to give us your information, then that's fine. But we still have to
Am I being
identify.
detained at this point?
Yes.
For what?
For the identification of you, which is an investigation that they started.
Okay, I'm not giving any identification. I'd like to remain silent.
Okay. At this point, you're being detained.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you straight. Are you of the opinion that Officer Beatty and Officer Galt violated this subject's civil rights based on your review of the video evidence?
Yes, absolutely.
This is Sergeant Richard Kirkland, and these two are Officers Kay Beatty and Brett Galt, being interrogated for an investigation taken by the New Smyrna Beach Police Department following the illegal detention of an innocent veteran named Jeffrey Gray. In the following never-before-seen footage, you will see not only how corrupt cops act, but how they react and face the consequences of their fraudulent and dishonest actions. On the evening of December 14th, 2021, Officers Galt and Beatty detained an innocent veteran who was identified to be Mr. Jeffrey Gray for holding a signboard that had the words, "God bless the homeless," written on it. After a CAD call from the manager and RP, Axel, of the brewery company who complained that Jeff was violating property rights and making employees and customers uncomfortable as he asked for money, Officer Galt walks up to Mr. Jeff Gray and confronts him about the complaint from the brewery company's employee. He further asks Jeff to show his ID, which Jeff denies, as is his right to. Jeff proceeds to tell the officer that he has a right to stand on the pavement if he wishes, as he was not in violation of any law.
You said you're asking the customers for money and stuff like that.
Well, God bless them. So.
Okay, well, they don't want you up front of the business.
Okay. I don't want you up in front of the business.
Okay, well, that's not how this is
So
going
you
to
can
go.
go get in your car and leave.
No.
I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have a nice night.
They just don't want you up here anymore.
I don't care. They don't have the authority to tell me not to be here.
They said you're asking for money and stuff like that.
That's what they said. It's hearsay.
Huh?
It's hearsay. I
That's...
say I'm not asking for money.
Okay, well, they said you're up front. So can you just go somewhere else?
No.
Why?
Because I'm not going somewhere. I'll put it in my heart to stand right here. I'm staying right here.
Okay, but they don't want you blocking the sidewalk and stuff.
I'm not blocking the sidewalk.
Okay, you have your ID on you?
I don't have any ID on me there.
Okay.
And if I did, I wouldn't give it to you anyway.
Alright, well, you need to just move along. That's all they want you to do.
Nope, not happening.
Why?
Because I'm just saying God bless someone's does.
Okay, yeah, and you have the right to do that.
Yeah.
They just don't want you in front of their business.
Officer Galt then proceeds to interrogate the business employee about Jeff and the call they had placed to the police. The officer chats with the employee manager, Alex, present on the scene, explaining that Jeff was not asking for money and was on the public side of the sidewalk.
Did you guys told?
Yeah, yes sir.
How you can ask him for money?
Yeah.
He's just saying he's doing his political God bless America stuff. He's on his public sidewalk and he doesn't want to leave. You guys know him?
No. One of my employees has dealt with him before at another location. I've never seen him before here. I've had a couple of customers complain about it. He asked me to go up the street. I'm like, dude, I tried to talk to him and be like, hey man.
He's saying the same thing to me, that he's on his public sidewalk and he's not asking people for money. He's just saying God bless.
When I went out there, he was on our sidewalk, on our side of the sidewalk.
Okay. Is that okay if he just stays on the public sidewalk? And,
I'd rather he didn't.
he's not going to. He's recording me. I'm recording him. This is going to be. I mean, he doesn't want to identify himself, so.
Right. And that's not like him harassing customers out there.
If it's gotten to that point.
Officer Galt proceeds to call Officer Beatty, who shows up at the scene and tells Jeff he's panhandling in violation of the city ordinance. Beatty tells Jeff that he is not allowed an attorney as it is an investigation and acquires Jeff's gun from him as Galt handcuffs and detains him, both officers in violation of Jeff's rights as a citizen.
You were asking for money. Okay. So they have every right to have you move along. And since we're here because they called for you, we have to identify you.
I'm not giving you any ID.
If If you don't, you'll go to jail.
I'm not giving him any ID. I got showed him. Can I reach? I got my ID in my pocket.
It's
This is my ID.
you. I mean, you want to play that game?
I'm not showing you anything else. At this point, I'm invoking my right to remain silent. I'm invoking my right to have my attorney present during questions. I'm not answering questions. I'm not giving you an ID.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just making sure that you understand that your attorney has nothing to do with us. Okay, your attorney has to do with court. That's not us. And because we're here for you, we have the right during an investigation to identify you.
I'm not identifying myself.
Okay, so you're going to end up
All
going
right.
to
I
jail.
told him my name is Jeff, and that's all I'm giving you.
No, if you want to give us your information, then that's fine. But we still have to
Am I being
identify
detained at this point?
you. Yes.
For what?
For the identification of you, which is an investigation that they started.
Okay, I'm not giving any identification. I'd like to remain silent.
Okay. At this point, you're being detained. Okay. So, let me see this. Do you have anything in your pockets that don't poke, stab, or anything?
Since you're asking me if I have anything in my pockets, I am armed lawfully.
Okay.
Concealed carry permit.
Okay. Where's it at?
Here's my hands. It's in my pocket.
In your front pocket?
Yeah. Here's my
Okay.
hands. All right, perfect. Matter of fact, why don't you guys just put me in cuffs? I don't want any.
Yeah. You are allowed your attorney, but your attorney is a court thing. That's not us thing. All we want to do is identify you so that
I don't consent to any searches. I don't consent to any seizures.
well, you're right now. I'm making sure you have no knives on you. And then when they write a statement saying that you were breaking the law, what's this? Is that a knife or no? Is that a knife?
I don't have any knives.
Okay.
There's 2 magazines in my left pocket.
Okay.
So I don't consent to any searches.
That's fine. You just told me there's magazines to the gun that I just pulled off, so I'm just grabbing those. You still have keys on you that don't have a knife.
Officer Beatty explains Jeff's detainment, while Jeff tells the officers to cautiously proceed as they are in violation of his rights. Jeff here seems to have more knowledge about the law than both the officers do, as they lie and twist the violations he's charged with due to them not being well versed with panhandling as a city ordinance.
Just so, I want to make sure that you understand that you're forcing a hand that doesn't need to be forced. Okay? We're not here to take your gun. You'll have it back. Right now, it's mine because we had to detain you. Okay? That's what you pretty much asked us to do. Okay? When you don't want to identify yourself, then we're called. So it's totally different if we're driving by, and that's you over there, right? You're not requesting anything on your sign. You're not breaking any laws, okay? When they complain to dispatch that you're asking for money and that there are customers who are telling the staff that is against the law. So we're doing an investigation to see if that actually occurred, okay? That's the only reason why you're being detained. But because it's an actual investigation of a complaint, you have to identify yourself. That's state statute. Okay. Just make sure you're aware of what's going to go down because you won't.
I'd like to remain silent. Let's have my attorney present. I'm
Okay.
not answering any further questions.
Okay.
I will advise you guys that you're in violation of civil rights.
Absolutely not.
I ask you to cautiously proceed.
Upon further investigation and after interrogating an employee who had been working outside, it is found that Jeff is not in violation of any laws, as he had rights to be on the sidewalk and had a legal weapon carry permit.
Your sign doesn't say anything about money. And I just asked the guy who's sitting on the porch, and he says he didn't hear you beg for money. And so the only person who has a complaint about you standing on city property, which is not his problem, which is what I was explaining to him.
I just want to stand there on the sidewalk.
That's what I was trying to just tell you. I just get figure out what's going on.
10-4. So you have the right to be on the sidewalks, and you have a CCW. You have the right to carry.
A supervisory inquiry is conducted on December 15th in the Florida Police Department. On Friday, December 24th, 2021, Sergeant Richard Kirkland is interrogated by Lieutenant Mark Severance in New Smyrna Beach, Florida Police Department. The sergeant had been working as a Bravo shift supervisor and was doing overtime at the time the call was dispatched to Officer Galt. He is contacted by Officer Beatty after the incident for the panhandler call. In the following footage of the interrogation, Sergeant Kirkland confidently answers questions on Officers Galt and Beatty, along with providing the synopsis of key findings in the report.
Walk us through what happened.
Sure. So the ultimate findings are that the gentleman was not creating a crime, or was not committing a crime. He was completely within his rights. He was on a public sidewalk, and he was simply holding a sign saying, "God bless the homeless vets." Wasn't doing anything illegal or suspicious for that matter. They did not have a right to detain him, to seize him, his property, or anything. That was my ultimate findings. The way I got to those findings is I reviewed the video that was recorded by the subject and posted to social media. I also reviewed the both body-worn cameras from Officer Galt and Officer Beatty. Essentially, Officer Galt gets on scene first. He goes to make contact with the male. He tries to summon the male over to him. The male didn't really appear to respond, so he approaches the male, and they have a brief interchange where Officer Galt basically tries to get him to move along, and tries to give him some. The male challenges him and says, "I don't have to move along." I don't know if you want me to get into exact words and stuff, or you just want me to kind of give the...
No,
synopsis
did Officer Galt make contact with the business owner or the manager?
Not until after he had this, verbal kind of back and forth with the subject. I believe that he thought he was just going to walk up to the subject and ask him to move along, as we do on a lot of calls, and if the guy doesn't have a problem with it, moves along, no harm, no foul. Well, in this case, the gentleman says, "I have a right to be here, I'm not going to." So you can see Galt kind of is taken back a little bit, and he said, "Okay, well, let me go in and talk to the manager." So he does go in and talk to the bar staff. He tells them, the guy says that he's not going to move and that, he's on the sidewalk. I believe the bar manager tells him, well, he was on our property, and
So there was some dispute over what was their property, what was public property.
correct. It appeared from watching the video that the bar manager, the reporting party, that I believe his name is Axel, thought that the entire sidewalk belonged to their business. It clearly doesn't. It's a public sidewalk, and the subject was actually standing on the farthest away on the sidewalk he could be from the business.
Severance asks Kirkland to summarize the policy violation that had been committed by the officers in their negligence.
Can you summarize the policy violation? You proffered a couple of policy violations. The one, can you read that from the record there? Group 2.
The Group 2M, violation of rules, orders, etc., issued by the City Commission. It's basically, he violated our rules and policies and procedures, regulations by ultimately going against what he did for preliminary and follow-up investigations. He basically detained someone without the legal authority to do so. So clearly in violation of that policy. As far as Officer Galt, I do think that he also had a duty to recognize that what was going on was not okay. But again, I think he was naive and ignorant to the fact that panhandling is not against the law, and we cannot enforce a panhandling complaint by detaining people. So I think that they were operating under the impression that what they were doing was correct, but were just misinformed.
Concerning documents and videos from YouTube and body cams were provided for review on December 27th, 2021. On the evening of Friday, December 31st, 2021, Officer Galt is sworn in and made aware of the perjury he would face if he reported wrong facts. He is also given a garrity warning. Here is his interrogation regarding the incident with Mr. Gray.
When you made contact with, we'll call him Mr. Gray because we ultimately did identify him during the encounter. Can you describe the interaction you had with him?
I was just trying to be like people, like I am on most calls, just trying to get to know who he was, what his purpose was there. He was really blunt, not like straight up, not like asking or answering my just questions, just normal questions I had. Just what are you doing there? Is there a purpose you're up here? Stuff like that. He was just keeping to himself at that point.
Okay, what did he tell you he was doing?
That he was just whatever the sign was like. God bless the homeless vets. He was just trying to make people aware that God needs to bless the homeless vets.
Okay.
And he just kept going on that topic.
Where was he at when you first encountered him?
On the sidewalk, by the car, by the light post.
By the curb?
Yeah, by
Where
the
the
curb.
car's parked?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you ask Mr. Gray to move along or leave the area?
The business owner said initially saying that he was asking his customers for money. He just didn't want him up front of his business.
Okay. What was Mr. Gray's response?
He said he wasn't going to move. He said he has the right to be there, and he didn't feel like moving along.
Officer Galt is made aware of the violations he has committed by breaking Jeff's rights as a citizen to not identify himself. This shows that the officer is not well versed with the laws he's supposed to mandate and protect.
Why did you tell Mr. Gray that asking for money is technically against city ordinance?
At that point, I thought panhandling was a city ordinance violation.
Okay, so it was your belief that it was?
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that?
I thought that early on in training that we had a call, and there was people asking for money, and I thought that we looked up a city ordinance violation that was panhandling, and it's not a city ordinance violation. It's a state statute actually. So,
For, what's the state statute refer to?
like if you're blocking, like stepping out in traffic, blocking people's right to move.
So it's a 316 violation for some type of impediment of traffic.
Right.
If
It's a
you're
traffic violation.
soliciting or entering traffic patterns, right? That wasn't the case here, was it?
No.
Okay. So at this point in your investigation, did you have any reasonable or articulable suspicion that Mr. Gray was committing, or was about to commit a crime or a violation of city ordinance?
At that point, I believed he might have been asking people for money due to him not answering my questions. So that's why I went back out and re-engaged with him. I thought we had something maybe stirring up.
So at this point, you're still thinking panhandling is a city ordinance
Yes.
violation?
Yes.
And you're acting on that assumption
Yes.
to try to continue the investigation?
Yes.
Okay.
Officer Galt proceeds to give an account of Officer Beatty's initial contact with Mr. Gray and how he had stood by witnessing it instead of stepping in and taking the more correct course of action.
Can you describe Officer Beatty's initial contact with Mr. Gray?
He was asking him the same questions I was, kind of starting over the process. And then when he didn't want to identify himself, that's when he kind of went, instead of talking to the business owner, he kind of went hands-on with Mr. Gray. And at that point, I usually, like when we investigate other crimes and stuff like that, we listen to both sides of the stories, come back, talk to each other, and I don't know where that happened, maybe because he was frustrated with him.
Okay. Do you think that would have been a more prudent course of action to continue the investigation and figure out what's going on?
I do, yes.
On the evening of Sunday, January 2nd, 2022, Officer Beatty is sworn in and made aware of the perjury he would face if he reported wrong facts, as they did with Officer Galt. Officer Beatty is given an in-depth list of the violations he has committed due to his misinformation regarding the state statute. He tries everything in his power to distort the truth of the case, even after the lieutenant reminded him that there was video evidence. The lies from Beatty just kept on coming. The officer is in the perception that he could get away by manipulating the law to his advantage. He laughs as he realizes he's been caught for his misinformation.
Is asking for money, or another way to call it, panhandling, in a public place, public sidewalk, is that a crime or a city ordinance violation?
To my knowledge now.
No, I want you to tell me what were you thinking.
When I came to the scene, when I came on scene, I did think we had a city ordinance. I swore we had a city ordinance.
Okay.
That you weren't allowed to panhandle. Even more so, because I could have sworn that I've been told to enforce that on right underneath the Martin Luther King Bridge on the Lytle extension.
Officer Beatty describes his interaction with Axel, the employee manager, about whether Mr. Gray had actually committed a crime, to which we find out that he had not, and his presence making a waitress uncomfortable had nothing to do with him.
After speaking with the business employee, the manager, Axel's his name, was there evidence that any crime or city ordinance had been committed at that point?
No.
So your investigation resulted in that there was no crime, even assuming that your assumption that panhandling was a crime.
Correct.
Okay.
He actually, when I asked him why, 'cause we get told that all the time, he threatened me or she threatened me.
Right.
And so you ask what that is, and he said, well, he didn't really say anything to my waitress. She just is afraid to come back outside now because he's here.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
said, well, that's not on him.
Right.
He's allowed to be where he's at.
Okay.
And
Fair enough.
that's when I was done.
Officer Beatty also talks about how he informed Sergeant Kirkland about the incident after it had occurred, instead of before or during it, as he is obliged to, and how Kirkland had informed the officer that he had violated Mr. Gray's rights.
Did you call Sergeant Kirkland after the fact to advise him of the incident?
Yes.
Can you describe what his response was to you?
He immediately said, well, you violated every right he has.
Okay. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation on the phone, but what do you mean by that? I mean,
That's just what he said. I told him what went down. I told him, the manager's saying this, and he's being defiant. So to get space between the manager and him, we detained him for the investigation, brought him over to my car, and then he's like, well, I hope he doesn't make a big deal out of this because you just, I don't know if he said what amendment, but he's like, you just violated his rights.
okay.
Officers Beatty and Galt are held for violating the rights of innocent Mr. Jeffrey Gray, who had made employees of a brewery uncomfortable due to a sign, "God bless the homeless." Mr. Gray does no harm as he stands on the sidewalk long before he is detained by the officers wrongly due to their misinformation about the city laws. Sergeant Kirkland has a role to play in not supervising his officers correctly and ensuring they were aware of the laws of the city. Always remember, them being agents of the law doesn't mean they will always have your best interest at heart.